All right, last night, probably like many of you, I watched the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight, and as someone who is almost Mike's age, I'll be 58 in 2 months. I had obviously some level of interest in this, and was kind of pulling for Mike to actually have a decent performance. And disappointingly, it wasn't much of a contest at all. Mike looked, maybe 10% of his old self. I mean, he was clearly diminished. Jake Paul is obviously not a champion class boxer, but he's, got at least average skills for a professional boxer at this point. So, Mike made $20 million, good for him. But you can see, I'm just looking at why is he so diminished at that age? Is that pretty typical? And remember, this is a guy who genetically was one in a million. He was, the most feared person on the planet back when I was a kid, when it was Michael Jordan and Mike Tyson were the big superstars. Every person in the world knew him. Now, his lifestyle over the last, several decades has been one of, constant, late nights, parties. I mean, as a celebrity of that, much renown, it would be hard to avoid that stuff because everybody wants a piece of you. You're invited here, you're invited there. You have access to all kinds of ridiculous stuff. And so that's going to take a toll. And I guess he's had some sort of knee injury, which, you could see it was heavily, braced up during the fight. And, apparently somebody said he's been smoking pot and doing mushrooms for the last decade. So that's not going to help, right? It's not going to help your aging at all. Now, boxing is a very challenging sport. I did a little bit 2 months ago while I was in Slovakia. I kind of got thrown in a ring with a Slovakian national champ MMA fighter, who's, I guess, especially was kind of more a Muay Thai fighting. Pirat was his name. Super nice guy, and obviously he's letting me just hit him. It wasn't like he was actually trying to fight. And, and I did 6 rounds, and I think they were 90-second rounds. That's pretty damn exhausting, I got to tell you. Now, I'm not trained for that. I hadn't stepped in, the last time I had boxed was when I was 21, so I'm 57, so that was 37 years prior, and I'd only done it for a few months, and got absolutely no technique at all. I mean, you can point out 100 things I'm doing wrong here. But, I think if I trained boxing, and trained for that, I would probably move better, and, obviously look a little bit better. But I'm not planning on doing that. I have no reason to, get in a boxing ring anytime soon. But I think when we talk about, the things we lose, I can tell, like I said, I'm 58 and I'm doing, or almost 58. I'm doing really well. I mean, I'm relative to most 58-year-olds, jumping, sprinting, lifting, being strong, being fit. I've got world records on rowing machines. And quite honestly, when I compare myself to guys 20, 30 years younger than me, I'm pretty much hanging with them, at least on the rowing machine. That's pretty cool to see. But, I think of some of the things that we talk about, what do we lose the most rapidly, Well, it's pretty easy to stay on top of endurance. We see a lot of older endurance athletes that do pretty well. Strength is not that hard to maintain either, but it's that ability to snap, to pop, to jump, to accelerate, to change direction. That's a really hard thing to do. And I can point to my own thinking. Like I said, as I turn 60, one of the goals will be to dunk a basketball, and I've got some sprinting goals and running goals and a few other things that I like to do. And I can, like I can say, like with regard to jumping, when I was at my probably best, probably 25-ish, something in that neighborhood, I probably had maybe a 33, 34-inch vertical, something like that. I would say that right now, it's maybe 24 inches, right? Which isn't bad for an old guy. And the other thing is back then I weighed about 220. I'm about 260 right now. So obviously that 40 pounds of difference is going to make some. So maybe I can get that back to maybe, 27, 28 inches, which would be enough for me to dunk. I think it's going to happen, particularly as I lean out and get down into the maybe low 240s or upper 230s or something like that, which I will do over the next 2 years. But you're not going to quite have it all back, most likely. But I mean, you can maintain, and I would predict that if you have a good lifestyle and you specifically train for this stuff. And then again, there's a lot of things you have to do. Somebody asked me the other day, hey, how come, I'm out running sprints? Why aren't you blowing your hamstrings out? Well, one of the things, like I'm doing these Nordic curls. Nordic curls, some studies suggest 50% reduction in hamstring injuries if you can do Nordic curls, because they're very intense. They require a lot of explosivity and power and force going through those hamstring muscles that you would sort of simulate during a sprint. Because when you're sprinting, you are putting maximum stress and maximum amount of forces on these muscles. And that's why they that's why they often tear, particularly as we're older. And again, I will maintain that diet impacts your tissue quality, right? So if you're eating a crap diet, your tissues are going to suffer from that, and they're going to be less likely to perform as they're supposed to, or they once did when you're much younger, and more likely to be injured. Okay. So anyway, the fight, kind of disappointing. Obviously, I think anybody who watched it and tuned in was probably disappointed with the result. The undercard fight the co-main fight with the two women, Taylor and Serrano, was quite a good fight, and I thought that was something that was of interest. And the one prior to that was pretty good as well. But the Tyson Paul fight was, basically, it wasn't really a fight. Yeah, I don't think anybody would. And I think Jake Paul probably was making sure he didn't hurt the guy, because he just wasn't able. Really, like I said, he was much, much diminished. It was very obvious to see, and I hope he doesn't. He said he might continue to do that. I don't know that he's going to get another fight, quite honestly. Of any import. After seeing that, I would be surprised if any even sanctioned it. Anyway, guys, let me know what you guys think. Did you enjoy the fight? Did you watch the fight? What are your thoughts? Do you agree with me or disagree? All right, we'll talk to you soon.